Guys, I'm here to answer all your real estate questions. So check out this recording we did on a live Q&A where I answer every single question that comes at me. Guys, I guarantee some of those things that you want to know are in here. Go take a listen. Hey guys, what's up? It's been a while since I've done Q&A, and hey, hope a few of you pop on today and we'll do some TDC properties. Hey, what's up? You are the first one on. Thank you. I was saying I haven't done a Q&A for a while, so while you guys are getting your phone situated and whatnot, be thinking of questions. This is usually a pretty fun time for me. It's something I enjoy doing because, like when we do campfire real estate, there's usually a lot of people on and it's really hard to get to all the questions. So I do my best. I run through it. I never know how long this is going to last. Looks like I have about 30, 40 minutes here carved out for this today. So if you've got any questions, jump on and ask them. As of right now, we are still in the middle of 4 projects. And I'm making some, we've got a small enough audience I can throw this out. I don't like putting out too much information about my personal investments with a big group, but these intimate groups it's kind of nice to be able to kind of talk about what I'm doing. So we're going to be putting a couple of properties, probably a few properties on the market right now and switching over to light industrial storage, RV storage stuff. We've been looking into it for a long time now, and yes, I know. I always tell everybody don't overanalyze things and don't spend entirely too much time looking at things. You should just take action. This is one of those things, though. You guys have to keep in mind at 60. This is my retirement now. And what I do with my assets moving forward, I don't have as much time as some people do, some of you out there. And some of you are maybe at my age, and it's definitely not too late, but to get moving. But, it's funny, at 60, you could have, 5 cash flowing properties within 5 years or more than that. But let's be realistic. I hate it when people come on and talk about, I've got 30 properties in 1 year. It's like, okay, you're the exception to the rule because most people have 1 property in a year. But, if you have 5 cash flowing properties and they're making $500 a month, and you've got, a retirement account that's bringing in another $3,000 or $4,000 a month, or Social Security or whatever, and some savings and some other things. I mean, you could easily be up to $6,000 or $7,000 a month. And then just keep building your cash flowing properties. That's a funny thing. People always talk about, well, when I retire, I want to have this much money. Guys, when you fucking retire, you're going to have a lot of time on your hands to look for more properties. So, while I'll never retire because I enjoy what I do, I do look forward someday to being able to spend more time finding properties. Because the funny thing is I don't spend as much time looking for properties as I used to, just because I simply don't have the time. We've got, 3 businesses, 4 businesses we run, and I try to put in an hour or 2 every day, but it's hard. It's really, really hard to do it. I think I got 2 hours in today, which is towards the top. But if you guys are looking to pad your retirement, or actually just be able to retire or quit your stupid job, you're gonna have to put more than that into it. I'm kind of plateaued. I've done this climb, and now I'm kind of here right now, and I'm going to sell a few things off, and then I'll start climbing again in a different direction. I'll obviously keep residential too, but I want to increase my cash flow and do a few things. But for those of you that are just getting started, again, retirement shouldn't be a time where you sit around twiddling your thumbs and, do woodworking and things like that. You guys should stay vital and stay in the business game. Keep your brain fresh and keep buying properties. Because as I always say, the more you have, the safer you are. I don't care what happens. The more properties you have, the safer you are. The more you have, the more steady your income becomes. 5 properties, you can have a very unstable cash flow. 50 properties, and I'm not saying you need to have that, but 50 properties, you can pretty much map out what you're going to be making every month based on how much you're saving for repairs and all the things that go along with it. Especially after 4 or 5 years of owning a lot of properties like that, you should know exactly what your income is every month and take that as a draw. And if you make more, leave it in the account, because by God, you'll need it someday. So that's kind of just the way it works. All right. Where am I buying and why? Well, I kind of explained why. I just want to diversify a little bit. And quite frankly, commercial, I used to build commercial. So I understand the market pretty well, and it's something I've been wanting to do for years. My main mentor started off his investment journey, whatever, with 3 single family homes, and he sold those and bought a business, which I'm a advocate of, because I always tell you guys I would like you to see what it's like to make income from a business rather than a job, and then turn that money into more assets so that you can alleviate tax liability. And guys, let me know. I would love to, just like with a small group like this, go over my philosophy on that. Not today. Today I want to do Q&A. But the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I want to stabilize my cash flow. And I also want to take advantage of the market. I've made, quite frankly, millions of dollars in appreciation on my properties. And, some of them make great cash flow and some of them make not very great cash flow, but I've made a lot of money on appreciation. So, that's kind of what happens sometimes when you buy in places like California. If I took the money that I invested here and I invested it in, say, Indiana, in a stable market there, my cash flow would be massive right now. I'd be looking at probably $50,000, $60,000, maybe $100,000 a month, depending on how I invested it in an area like that. But I chose California. I wanted to stay close to home. And so my win since I started 15 years ago has been appreciation. It has not been massive cash flow. I can live on my cash flow, so I'm set that way. But my appreciation has been the real winner since I started investing. So, in California, when you're paying, for a single family home, north of $300,000 or $400,000 that rents out for, $2,500. Obviously, there's no cash flow there, right? But over time, it does work. And of course, I buy things that do cash flow from the beginning, but they don't cash flow a lot. So anyway, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. When I pause like this, that means I'm just scrolling through to see what kind of questions we've got and to wave at everybody. And I'm actually looking all over the United States. I'm obviously looking, I would, if anybody's got anything interesting, make sure it's interesting. Out of California, anything out of California. I'm not going to buy anything in California unless it's just ridiculously good. But yeah, if you guys know of any RV storage, truck storage, light industrial, warehousing, things like that. That's what we're looking for. But I only have one Instagram account, so if anybody's hitting you up at any given time, I look and there's 4 or 5 of me out there, but I only have one. I am not against Bitcoin, but I do not push it, and I will never ask you for money. I will never ask you for to invest with me. I get people approaching me all the time that want to invest with me, and maybe someday I'll start doing that. But as of right now, we're not looking for new investors. So, this is one of those things that I'm just kind of here. If you guys need me, I'm here. But I'm not going to ask you to invest with me. If I do, you'll know it's me because it'll be me saying it, not some faceless stranger. You'll see it on here. The Amazing Grazing is asking, what is an exit strategy without huge taxes? It depends. And I see below there you said it's how can I sell a long-term rental? Well, what you want to do is you want to 1031 exchange it. So you're not going to be able to cash out. There's no way to cash out of a property. And a 1031 exchange is simply taking the tax liability or your capital gains and moving it down the road, right? So you're going to take, very simply, the way a 1031 exchange works is, and I'm not going to go through time frames and everything because it'll take too long, but basically you sell a property and you have a certain amount of days, I think it's 45 days, to find another property to put the gains into, okay? So you're going to go through a 1031 administrator. So when you close, the money's your money will go to a 1031 administrator. You're not allowed to touch it. And then you have 90 days to close. And that has to be of equal or greater value. Greater value is always better. And they really don't care. They say it's like kind meaning the same kind of property, but you can go from residential to industrial and they don't care. And you can take that, let's say you buy a property for 100, you sell it for 200, you've got $100,000 gain. So instead of paying depending on where you're at, figure 25, 30, probably upwards to 30% in capital gains on that. Instead of paying that to the government, you take that entire $100,000 gain and you put it into the next property without paying your taxes. Now, they're not forgiving the taxes, you're just kicking the can down the road. You can keep 1031 exchanging into bigger and bigger properties as time goes on, or you can just keep that one property and never pay a gain on it. But you will end up paying all those gains back if you ever sell the property and cash out, if that makes sense. So if you ever want to go, okay, I'm done being a landlord, I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to sell this last property, and that's it. Well, you're going to pay back your 1031 gains. You're going to have to pay that back, and depreciation also. They're going to recapture that depreciation. So there's no free ride if you cash out. But if you keep going and going and going, well, you can until you die. You can keep going, and then there's all kinds of tax shelters and things like that if you set up your trust correctly for your heirs. So. The answer is you don't have to pay any capital gains as long as you reinvest the money. But you take the money out and decide you want to buy a car, take a vacation, then you're going to be paying minimum 30% capital gains when it's all said and done. Maybe less depending on whatever state you're in. But just that's the one way to avoid it. I hope that answers your question. Let's see here. Cyber Investor, Florida. What's happening? All right, guys. I don't know. There we go. I know there were some questions at the top. Guys, if you asked a question at the top, just repost it. So anyway, that is typically the way. So we've 1031 exchanged a bunch of properties over the years, and some have done very, very well. Well, they've all done well appreciation wise, and some of them, sometimes properties you have to almost recalibrate where you're at. You might find a property that just doesn't work for you. It may be somebody else that's going to work for, and we sold several properties in the past where we've made a ton of money on gains, but the properties never really cash flowed the way we wanted them to. So that's what's great about a 1031 exchange. Whether the property worked or not, you can get out of it. You can get out of that hole, and maybe someone can come along and maybe they'll have better luck. That's their deal. and you can move on to another property. And we've always made better decisions. Keep in mind, at first we were buying single family homes in not great areas. They weren't terrible, but they weren't they weren't class A, they weren't class B. It was very class C, low class C type areas. And we didn't want to deal with that type of thing. The tenants weren't the problem so much. It's just kind of like the area itself. And so we started selling those assets off and buying more class C apartments. And it was a good move for us. But, we've done a lot with appreciation on those over the years. And like I said, 15 years. I've been doing this 15 years. So, you look back 15 years in your life and it does go quick. Of course, if you're 30, you're going, well, Mark, I was 15. But you do understand once you're past 20, time just starts flying like that. So if you look at 15 years as an investment strategy, it's a really long time, but keep in mind, I probably could have, if I really wanted to, if I just wanted to be fishing all day long and, drive an older car and, my house is almost paid for. But if I wanted to live a little leaner, I could easily retire and still do all the things that I enjoy, because the things I enjoy don't cost that much money. Well, some of the stuff I do costs a lot of money, but I wouldn't be able to do those things. But I could have done it probably after 7 years, I would imagine. And keeping in mind that as the years go on, even if I stopped investing at that point, as the years go on, debt, relatively speaking, goes down, even though most of my loans are interest only. Now I look back and I've got places that I bought for, $175,000, $200,000 years ago. And I still owe that much money on them, but now they're worth $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. Relatively speaking, I've paid down debt on that, even though I've never paid down the debt, right? So the amount I owe is somewhat insignificant compared to the cash flow that I'm getting, because the rents keep going up. Point being is that if you guys do decide to stop, let's say you decide that you do want to stop. I've got 10 properties. And I've got cash flow today of $5,000 and I can afford to live on that. Well, that's going to go up. It's not just cost of living. Your debt's going to go down. You can restructure, you can refi, get your payments lower. Your rents are going to go up. Generally, my expense ratio, I raise my rents every year a little bit. And I'd say probably half of my rent raise comes back to me, and the other half goes to expenses that have gone up, property taxes, utilities, insurance, things like that. They tend to always go up. So I'm making, let's say I raise my rents, like right now this year, so April is when we raise our rents, and I think right now, trusty calculator here, 4 times about equals. So we're going to have probably about $3,500, between $3,000 and $3,500 in rent raises in April for the month, right? So every month our rents will go from whatever it is to $3,000 to $3,500 more. That is the equivalent of that's 30. If it's be $36,000. If that was a $3,000 rent raise, $36,000 a year. I mean, think about it. I mean, give me some thumbs up or something if $36,000 a year yearly income increase would make a difference in your life. You got to take half of that, right? Because half of that is half of that's going to go towards higher expenses, and then half of that's going to go in your pocket. But okay, Big O, I'm going to get you, then Cyber Investor, I'm going to come back to you. How much do you raise the rent by? We raise it yearly, and in California, we're pretty much hog-tied by how much we can raise it. We are not, I would say probably half of our units are at market. The rest of them are below market because we have not been able, because California has strict laws on how much you can raise the rents, and we have rent control and whatnot here. We're not able to raise them as much as rents have gone up. So Like one of my apartment buildings, two of my apartment buildings now, the standard rent for the one bedroom units there is $13.50. That's the going rate now. And I would say maybe 30 to 40% of the units there are rented at $13.50. The rest of them are anywhere from, $850, $900 to, $13.50. And the reason being is because, when we bought them, they were under rented, and we have only been able to raise the rent so much. But the good thing is we're still cash flowing a lot on those places, and we'll just continue. It's just going to continue to climb. I don't know that we'll ever catch up to market rents on some of these. Of course, if someone passes away or moves or whatever, we've got obviously have a lot of long-term tenants that have been there long enough to where their rent's still relatively low, market-wise speaking. So, but we raise our rents here in California. We're allowed to raise our rents 3% plus cost of living, whatever the cost of living is. And in some areas, we can't even do cost of living anymore. We just do a 3% straight raise. And I think, I'm against the government telling me anything about what I can do. But I understand why that works, because the prices of rents have gone up so much here. People literally can't afford the rent. So I hate it, but at the same time, I understand it. So I guess that makes me empathetic. I'm not sympathetic, I'm empathetic. I understand why it is what it is, but I don't like it. But still, keep in mind, I bought these, a few years ago, and it cash flowed from the beginning. So every year it just gets better and better and better. And most of you out there aren't going to have interest-only private money loans on your properties or interest-only bank loans like I do. You're going to have amortized loans. Amortized meaning that every month you're going to pay interest plus principal. Principal being what you owe. So every year you're going to be knocking out that debt a little bit. And you may get to the point where, I don't like my $4,000 a month payment. And I've been paying on this for 8 years now. I want to refi and get my loan payment down because, you've knocked it out. Your loan payment doesn't change even though you get to the end of the loan. The loan payment stays the same. So you might want to be able to lower your loan payment $1,000 a month on an apartment complex. Well, that's $12,000 a month more in your pocket, right? If you can refi, pay the fees to refi, and end up making or paying $1,000 a month less or $2,000 a month less, that's that much more money in your pocket. I don't look at debt on my properties the same way a lot of people do. I look at it as something that it's a necessary evil, but I can play with that debt. I can borrow against it. I can refinance it and bring it down and increase my cash flow every month. There's all kinds of funny things you can do to make more money with your rentals. So that's kind of how we roll with that. Can you explain a bit? Cyber Investor Florida is asking, can you explain a bit more about how a 1031 works? Still trying to understand why somebody will sell property A to buy another property with that money. So let's say you have, the way I explained it earlier is when I first started investing, I bought a lot of properties. I got really good deals on in areas that I didn't necessarily want to be in anymore. And I had a lot of appreciation on those properties. So in other words, I made a lot of money when the prices went up. So I just decided, I want to take that money there was a time, and still today, where I didn't really want to have single family homes. I just wanted to have apartments. So I'm down to 2 single family homes and the rest is all multifamily. And what I'm doing right now is changing that over into another asset class. But for someone that's starting out, you may buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in an area of whatever city you're in that's not that great because that's what you can afford at the time. And, 5 years later, you look at that and you go, well, I'm not really thrilled with this property, but it's appreciated $75,000. So I think what I want to do is I want to move to the other side of town and buy a property there where the rents are higher and the prices are higher. But I don't want to pay taxes on that $75,000 gain. So I'm going to take that $75,000 from the house that I don't really like, where I've had a lot of problems with tenants and, move-ins and move-outs and whatever. and I'm going to take that $75,000 tax free and put it into another property. That's what a 1031 exchange does in essence. You're selling a property that you might not necessarily want anymore, or maybe you've got so much equity into a great property, but you find even a better property and you don't have the wherewithal to own both. So maybe you can't qualify for the loan. You haven't been as diligent about raising private money as I want you to be. Maybe you're not spending enough time on that, and you don't have the wherewithal to keep them both. Well, you're going to sell the one and get the better one, right? And you're going to be able to exchange for without paying taxes. Now, again, if you end up someday selling that final property, you're 85 years old and you go, I'm done being a landlord. I'm done with this shit. And you just say, I'm gonna go on a around the world cruise and I'm just gonna pay the taxes. Well, you're gonna have to pay the taxes, but you're gonna have to pay the tax man for those exchanges you did. You're just putting off that tax liability down the road. But if you never sell the property, you never pay the taxes. That's the way it goes. You die and your heirs deal with it. Like I said, if you set your living trust up correctly, then you can mitigate a lot of taxes on their side too. So that's why you would want a 1031 a property. And yes, I know, I say the biggest regret I've ever had is that I sold properties. Okay, there's properties that I've sold that are the happiest days of my life. And a sigh of relief, and it's like, God, I'm so glad I'm done with that property. And somebody else has it and it works for them, but it's a crapshoot, guys. Sometimes it doesn't work. And if that's the case and you've made money on it and you want to get out of it, then change it to something else. That's what the 1031 is set up for. Okay, I raised rent by 3%. I think I answered that. Plus cost of living. Ryan, what's my take on Joshua Tree in terms of the short-term rental market? I own a beautiful house there, and I go there a lot. And we have a house that we've been working on for quite a while, and my wife and I are dialing it in. It turns out we just like going out there on the weekends. So I just got back yesterday from there. And I think the market is saturated out there, and there's a lot of people that are going to disagree with me, but those are mostly people that sell short-term rental courses that probably don't want to know don't want to talk about the truth of the matter. But yeah, there's certain areas where short-term rentals are overdone. There's a lot of areas. Short-term rentals are good in certain areas. I can't tell you which ones. I've got one left in Hawaii, and I've got one in Joshua Tree. But getting into that market now, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It's all about amenities. You've got to have. Used to be you could have a cute little cabin with a decent view, and it would be full every weekend. But now you've got to have jacuzzis and games and bars, and you got to have all kinds of stuff to make it work. And it can work. I'm not saying it can't work, but there are probably more out there than is demand. Demand is far less than what's out there as far as I'm concerned. I drive around out there a lot. We do a lot of hiking, so I'm driving out through the houses, and you can tell a short-term rental from a regular house, obviously. And a lot of them are empty on the weekends. So I would, as much as I love it out there, I would sink my teeth into. I know short-term rentals make a lot of money. I've got friends that make a ton of money with them, and but bang for buck and for longevity, long-term rentals, there's no way to beat it. And midterm rentals are good too, but that's another thing that's starting to get super popular. I mean, Instagram kind of effed everything up for short-term rentals and midterm rentals. It was hot for a long time because not that many people knew about it, but now everybody knows about it. And there's people doing, short-term rental arbitrage, where they'll lease a house from somebody and then they'll short-term rental it. there's, $20,000 courses out there on how to do all this. And the problem is the market is fairly saturated in a lot of areas. And I can't in good conscience tell people to do it. And I've been doing it longer than probably anybody on Instagram. No, not longer than anybody on Instagram, but all the gurus out there, and I know them, and a lot of them are friends, but I've been in the business longer than they have, short-term rentals, because I started in Hawaii like 12 years ago, 11 years ago, and we had 6 over there at one time. And it's just it's a tough business. It's tough to make money with it right now. It wasn't in the past. We made a lot of money in Hawaii. We were making, between those 6 units, I think we were making like 15 grand a month just on those 6 units, and we had a bunch of rentals here too. So we were living high, but then we weren't, because they outlawed it over there, and that's another thing too you got to worry about, is them outlawing things. Joshua Tree, I don't think is much of an issue. They make too much money. It's really spread out. People out there don't seem to mind, because it's actually bringing a lot of business to the town. The retired folks out there aren't thrilled about it, but even them, we've got some people living across from us, and they're very sweet, and they're fine with it. But long story short is, I think JT's probably reached its saturation point at this time. If more people hear about it, maybe there'll be more room. But keep in mind, summertime, it's pretty empty out there. Anyway, hopefully that, 1,800 short-term rentals. There's probably more than that. Probably a lot of unlicensed stuff out there. Hey, Eric. Every time I say you guys should give me a thumbs down or something. I say that too much. I used to belong to this thing called Toastmasters. Some of you are familiar with it. It's a group of people that get together once a week and you practice giving speeches. And they have everybody has a job, because there's always someone that has to get up and speak, and then other people speak and whatnot. And the Wizard of Oz, AHS, was the guy with a bell, and every time he said or and they ding that bell. I got a lot of dings. How many units are in my apartment buildings? Well, I've got duplexes, 6plexes, 12plexes, 4plexes, triplexes. So there's the biggest one is 12 units. I don't have anything bigger than that. My mentorship program is $39.97. Yeah, $39.97. So that's for 4 weeks. We meet every week, and then we have a group where I'm on every day. If you guys have questions after that, it's unlimited. If somebody on there doesn't answer the question before me, then I'll answer it. But and then I'm just starting another thing too, just because I worry about people not following through on things. So we're going to start a once monthly phone call too, or probably more of a Zoom. But yeah, so we have live classes. Our classes are small. There's not like hundreds of people in it. It's like 25 or less. But it's super cool. And quite frankly, it's one of those things where I did one years ago. I won't go down the road too far on this. I'm not trying to sell it either, but I did one like 14 years ago where we were able to get together. Right now it's all, because we're all over the country. We do it through Zoom, but this one was actually local here. It doesn't exist anymore. That club's gone. But being able to talk to other people that were doing it, that's why the Facebook group is there, and having someone that's done it, which is me, made all the difference. The people that we were working with then, it was amazing. That was why we succeeded at what we did. And then I took a private money course, and so I kind of combined those two. I'll tell you, I want to sell in LA County and go to any other county. The amazing grazing. Yeah, LA is getting worse and worse. They will get worse as time goes on. And we have a huge, San Francisco, LA, there's other cities that have massive homeless problems, but it's all getting out of hand, and the government intervention. The government intervention when you're trying to build something or trying to rent something is massive, right? They've got so much infrastructure built for that, but people living on the streets, not so much. It's and there's no excuse for that. Anyway, let's not get on a soapbox, but the priorities are not really squared away in LA, and people, there's a lot of money to be made there, and I've made massive amounts of money in Los Angeles. It's funny, I flipped a house there like 12 years ago and never left. We started off working in my area of Orange County, and we ended up doing one in LA, and we just stayed up there and flipping, and we've done so many flips in LA and so many turnkey rentals and things like that in Los Angeles. But the regulations and just getting through plan check is painful. It hurts. Yuko and I were having that conversation this morning. I've got 3 projects in plan check right now, and one finally got approved on Friday and this is just a simple remodel. It's 4 months. 4 months for a simple remodel. And it's just, it's silly. But there's still millions, billions of dollars to be made in that city. But, I feel you. It's difficult to do business there. There's other places you can go to, for sure. Full show. Questions, guys. Eric, what's up, man? You need to call me because we need to set up a time to do your show, and then I want you to come on mine. We talked about that. What are your thoughts? Cargoli is asking, what are your thoughts on cash out refinance instead of as a tax-free way to access equity? So I'm big on that now because I've owned my properties long enough where I can borrow against them tax-free, and I can still cash flow. If I need the money for some reason, or I want to buy something or pay down something else, I can borrow that money tax-free. Or you can borrow it and buy another house and pay it back. But I'd caution you to not do that in the beginning, though. This way of, everybody's been kind of teaching how you buy this house, you refi it, take all your money out plus some more, and then buy another house. And everybody's dealing with, $200 a door cash flow. It's a scary place to be, guys. If an air conditioner goes out, there's going to be a whole hell of a lot more than $200. So you got $2,400 a month in cash flow, or a year, and you got a $6,000 air conditioner that goes out. So you gotta be aware that things are going to break. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. That's why the volume of properties you own is important. But that doesn't mean that you live right on the edge. It's a dangerous place to be. So be careful when you take money out of properties to buy other properties. Make sure that your income to debt ratio is low. I try to keep 50% income to debt ratio. So in other words, if I have a property that's worth $500,000, I don't ever want that loan to go above $250,000, right? So let's say I paid $150,000 for it, and now it's worth $500,000. I have no problem accessing that $100,000 equity, which would give me a 50% debt ratio, right? So I owe $250,000, it's worth $500,000. I don't have a problem with that, as long as your cash flow is still sufficient. And by sufficient, I put a round number of $350 a door in cash flow, real cash flow, after using my 40% rule, which is on my YouTube channel. Go look at that. It's a super easy way to comp your properties. But don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. I'm sorry, $350 for apartments, and I try to get at least $500 a month on single family homes. That's tough. But I'd rather have sufficient cash flow than lose a house because I couldn't afford to make the payment because something went wrong. So I don't have a problem with it because it is tax free. You can borrow against your properties tax-free. The wealthy do it. I guess I'm wealthy and I've done it, but just don't overdo it. Don't get high on your own supply. You know what I'm saying? Yes, Eric, it also resets the tax benefits. That's true. Jay Hearn 21 is asking, do you see more cities going against short-term rentals like Fountain Valley? Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we first started getting into them, Anaheim had a whole program set up for short-term rentals, and they were making so much money. And we were in negotiations on 2 houses. And I went to the city and I said, look, I'm going to invest a lot of money here because we'd already owned short-term rentals in Hawaii. And Anaheim is where Disneyland is. And houses there are renting out for $600, $700, $800 a night. And the cash flow was amazing. I knew one guy that had like 25 houses that he was doing that with. And they were all Disney themed. They were cool. I mean, I wouldn't want to live next door to one of those because, you know, people are there to party and have fun. And you don't want to be next door to that. But probably a week after I visited the city and their specific little office for short-term rentals, and they had assured me that the program was never going to go anywhere because they were making so much money from it. The city loved it. It was a win-win situation for everybody. A week later, they shut it down. And it was due to homeowners in the area were just getting tired of it. You know, the people aren't trying to be bad that are staying at short-term rentals. They're just there on vacation. So, you know, when you go to bed at 9:30 at night or 9 o'clock at night like I do, and the next door neighbor has a short-term rental with a pool and the kids are out there swimming till 10:30 or 11, yeah, there's going to be an issue. And that would be a problem for me too. It'd be a problem for most people. So yeah, the cities will shut them down. That's what's going to happen. I mean, Oahu shut them down. Waikiki shut them down. So there's no more short-term rentals in Waikiki unless you're, you know, in a condotel. And all of our units were in just regular condos where the homeowners association approved short-term rentals. But when they changed the rules around and actually started enforcing things more stringently, they said, yeah, no more. It's going to be 30 days. And then it went to 90 days. And then it went back to 30 days. And right now we're at 30 days, but I only own one there now. I own 2. One's my house and another one's a rental. But yeah, they can and will, and they do. And, you know, when it becomes, when the people that live in those cities make enough noise, they're going to acquiesce. That's just what's going to happen. You know, you get enough people yelling, they'll shut it down. So, yeah, I mean, Garden Grove did it. You know, everybody in Anaheim moved to Garden Grove. Garden Grove said, screw this. And they shut it down. And most of the cities don't allow it anyway. They just don't allow it. But it's not enforced because it's not that widespread. But once it becomes widespread, like the city of LA, I know lots of people there that are doing short-term rentals and they're making a ton of money right now, but it's not legal. And, you know, they'll eventually get shut down and that'll be that. But, you know, that's not a game I want to play. So that's why, yes, you can make a lot of money with short-term rentals, but short-term, right? How clever is that? Dan, USA Land Ventures, my partner at Campfire Real Estate. So short-term rentals are great, but they're not so great. So, you know, you never know. And another problem too with short-term rentals, when they do go, what happens to the market there? You know, especially, you know, if there's a lot of short-term rentals. Anthony, I'm good, man. Thank you for asking. If there's a lot of short-term rentals in the area, it's going to crash the market, right? Not everybody, let's say, you know, the city of Anaheim, let's say they had 1,000 short-term rentals. I don't know how many they had. I have no idea. But now all of a sudden, you can't have short-term rentals there anymore. Now, some of them were grandfathered in. You know, there were some lawsuits and whatnot, but most of them got shut down. So now all of a sudden, we've got a lot of houses that have been remodeled, and there's a glut of them on the market. So what does that do to the market? It lowers the price of houses, right? So you got 500 people all of a sudden putting their property up for sale, all within 6 months. And then on top of that, all the other properties that are, just naturally going through the sales process, people are selling because they're buying, they're dying, they're doing whatever they're doing. And now you've stretched the market too thin. We've got too much inventory, not enough buyers. And, right now it might be okay because inventory is so light, but you can't count on that because we don't know what it's going to be like when things like that happen. And that happened in Hawaii. They shut it down, and now you've got 3,000 short-term rentals in Oahu, most of them in Waikiki, and very, very small, tight area there. And everybody, there was like three responses. I'm just going to sit here and cry, I'm going to sell, or I'm going to long-term rent it. And there's only so many people that are going to long-term rent in those areas too. And it's just one of those that's kind of self-perpetuating. You start thinking about the problems you're going to have with that, and it just keeps expanding and expanding. I'm not against short-term rentals, and I've made a lot of money with them. But, just know that it could end, and it could end bad. You could make a lot of money. You could make, $100,000 in 3 years, positive cash flow. And it could all be gone in 6 months or a year, of paying debt service and property taxes and maintenance and whatnot on a house that's not rented out. So just know what can happen and play it smart. I wouldn't ever put all my eggs in the short-term rental basket. I wouldn't do that. I had enough eggs in that basket. I got hurt financially enough on that. I would never have that many eggs in a basket again. Long-term rentals is different. Ryan Lamana, sorry, I think I'm saying that really, really bad, but are investors leaving California because of rent control and caps on rents and things? Seems like it discourages investment and makes everything more expensive, not less. We're seeing that in Oregon. Yeah, again, I know people that are making so much money in California, but it just depends on your scale. If you're building, a 400 unit apartment complex in LA, probably your pockets are deep enough, you're going to be fine. And, especially if you're building something new right now, your rents are what they are, and you're starting off with a clean slate. Buying properties there is a different situation, but I know people that are buying properties there still, and they're cash flowing, they're making money. But it's just one of those things. It's like, do you want to buy the Alfa Romeo that is super cool and sounds really sweet, but has a crap load of maintenance? Or do you want to buy the Ford? It's reliable and it gets you where you're going. You never have to take it to the mechanic very often. I'm kind of just a Ford guy now. I don't need flashy properties anymore. I don't need to be in LA. I can be anywhere now. And as long as it cash flows, that's all I care about. So there's always going to be a demand here, guys. I mean, right now the weather sucks. We've had 96 inches of rain in basically the desert this year. But for the most part, it's usually warm and sunny, and we can go to the beach every day here. So there's a reason why people live here, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. People will pay the price to do that. But as far as investing here, I mean, there's probably other places that would be better. You can certainly get more cash flow, but also keep in mind that because I invested here and started investing 10 or 15 years ago, I'm still buying properties now, but the majority of my wealth right now is because I bought 15 years ago and started buying 15 years ago and held on to most of them, or 1031 exchanged them. And now I've just got a crap load of equity built up now. And yeah, I can't spend it, but I've got it. Wealth is a nice thing when you go to bed at night and you lay your head on that pillow and you go, yeah, I'm worth whatever. Feels good. So invest where you're going to make the most money, guys. I like a combination of cash flow and appreciation. If you can find a place that does that, and so I know someone's going to ask me right now, where? Comes to mind is, places in the Midwest where tech is moving to, where manufacturing is moving, places like that are still growing, that aren't, I would avoid places that were growth based because of COVID. Places that just blew up because of COVID. Until there's more data on those areas, I would avoid those areas. If they've got staying power, maybe 1 or 2 years from now, I might start looking at those markets. And I might regret not buying in them, but I'm okay with regret. Regret for me is very short-lived. I would rather find things that work well for the long term. I look at jobs, I look at crime somewhat, but mostly I look at jobs, and I look, are people migrating in or people migrating out? And, I look for the positive numbers on that, not the negative. So that's kind of what I look at. Specifically, I'm not going to say, because I'm no expert on every area of the United States. No one is. And if they say they are, they're full of shit. But, take that for what it's worth. Hey, we're doing good. We've been on for a while. Pedrio. Maybe I got that 20. I like this question. Do you have to get permits just to remodel a house? Literally, in California, legally, you have to have a freaking permit to change a faucet. Now, no one does. I mean, water heater change out, you're supposed to have a permit, all that. Certainly to do a remodel, yes. So carpet paint, you don't really have to have, new doorknobs, things like that, landscaping, you don't have to have a permit for that. But when you start legally, when you change light switches out and you change sinks out and things like that, you have to have a remodel permit for that. And windows, doors, things like that. If you open up a wall, you have to have a structural engineer it, and it's got to be a permit. There's got to be plans. There's got to be elevations. They got to see all sides of the building. Have to have a plot plan. It's the whole 9 yards. And there's other states, and chime in, guys, if you know what states are friendlier than that. Hawaii is awful too. Mostly just with their permitting process. You can get away with remodeling houses in Hawaii if you're just doing cosmetic stuff. But if you start moving things around and you get caught, and if you get caught without a permit, they tend to always put your file at the bottom. And, so something that should take 2 or 3 months is going to take 6 months to get done. They just, they punish you. They don't say they're punishing you, but they do. So yes, permits are an issue. Like I said, you guys, I would love to hear if you know in your state or city if it's more contractor friendly. Because I know there's states where they really don't require a lot of, they have permitting, but it's not that big of a deal. I hear people, it's like, yeah, we got a permit to tear the house down and rebuild it. It's like, okay, how long did that take? Oh, we just went and got it. It's like, damn, I could make money in that state or that city. Tito, what's up? Yeah, Eric says I'm mixed, 40 long, 4 mid, 1 short. Yeah, we're pretty close to those numbers too, but I don't have any mids. I've got a couple of buildings right now I'm thinking about doing mids in, but it's, that's another thing too is, you can go on Furnished Finder. By the way, guys, if you're interested in midterm rentals, Furnished Finder is just a place where people go to find short or midterm rentals. So midterm rental is like, someone that wants to go, someone that's working in the area short term, like traveling nurses or sometimes business people come and work someplace for 6 months and they got to get a short term place. That's a midterm rental. And it pays less than a short term rental, but it pays more than a long term rental. So it's sort of a hybrid. And it's furnished, obviously, Furnished Finders. But you can look on Furnished Finders to see what the demand is in your area or see how many there are in your area. And, most of my areas, there's just so many of them. Now it's not something I'm interested in. But maybe you can convince me, Eric. I don't know. My most profitable property right now is probably... my most profitable property is probably the 12 unit that I've got simply because of the size of it. But per unit, I've got a duplex in Santa Ana, California that I've owned for a long, long time, and both the units are remodeled. I'm getting max rents on that, and I owe like $175 on it. It's worth, I think, $7, and rents are $27.50 $50 plus $650 plus. So rents are $4,400 on that little. It's two little houses, little tiny houses. So $4,400 in rent. I should whiteboard this, but you guys, I'll just do it real quick. So I owe $175, and that is a 5% interest only loan, private money. 5%, so that's $87.50 a year divided by 12 equals, I'm paying a whopping $730 a month for that. My property taxes are super low, and I'm not going to have any repairs on that anytime soon. It's funny, I did a whole video series. Yes. Nothing. I did a whole video series on how I was going to borrow the $100,000 to remodel this one unit. And we ended up just using money in our bank account to do it. And I haven't replaced that money yet. So that was $100,000, some flip profits, I'm sure. So I still just owe the $175. So the mortgage didn't go up, and I'll probably borrow the $100,000 just because I want to put the cash back in the bank. Because it's only going to raise my payment by $5,000 a year, right? So like $444 a month. Yeah, something like that. But anyway, so I'm paying $730 right now. Property tax is minimal. I'd say I'm probably, on a bad month, I'm in less than $2,000 in expenses, and that includes my CapEx reserves, my repair reserves. And so in other words, CapEx reserves are money I set aside every month. Technically, I don't do it anymore because I have enough money in my reserve account now that can handle anything. And that'll happen with you too. After you've owned properties long enough and you keep putting money in a reserve account, you get to the point it's like, I don't have to put any more money in here. This is kind of stupid. I've got $100,000 in there, and there's not going to be any repairs that go above and beyond that. So if that gets below a certain point, then we'll start adding money to it. But so far, it hasn't been an issue. I think she probably adds some money to it. But let's just say, it all goes to hell, and I have vacancies, and I've got, I don't have any expenses on utilities there because, strange but true, so when you buy a property, make sure that it's got separate gas meters and electric meters for each unit. If it doesn't, don't do it unless it's just a ridiculously good deal, because utilities will kill you if you're paying all of them and you're just bumping up the rent to cover it. You're going to get in trouble eventually. Yes, you can sub-meter. You can do all kinds of things. You can do RUBS, which is a method of charging people every month for utilities. But I just choose to find units that actually have that. But this is one of those rare buildings where it's got two separate water meters too. So I pay for nothing. I'm paying for trash service and sewer and property taxes. So in fact, my expenses are less than $2,000. I'm probably like about $1,700 a month on that. So $4,400. And yes, I know that's not the 40% rule, but I know this property, and I always tell everybody, plan on 40% of the rent's going to go to expenses plus debt. Again, go to YouTube, watch my 40% rule video. It's served me well. So 4,400 minus 1,700. So yeah, for doing nothing, I'm making $2,700 a month on that one property. So I'm making $32,000 a year on one property that it's just going to do nothing but go up. The value is going to go up, and the property is going to go, the rents are going to go up. And, the sad but happy thing is that there's people living on $32,000 a year from their job. And this is something that I bought, I don't know, 9 years ago, I guess. And I just held on to it. just held on to it. And yeah, there were some hiccups, it had repair issues and things like that. That's why I finally just said, when this last tenant moved out, after they lived there for 35, 40 years, some crazy ass thing like that. When they moved out, I went in and just completely redid the electrical, redid the plumbing, new roof, new drywall, new floors, everything was brand new. Reframed, new windows. We redid everything in the house. So it's a brand new house. And the little house next door, we redid 8 years ago, and it's still in great shape. So this is an asset that will just keep going up in value, and I'll probably sell it and probably exchange it because I've got so much equity in it right now. I could probably buy a decent sized commercial building with that, and I would probably make about the same cash flow, but that's kind of the direction I'm going anyway. So, but anyway, that's a great question, and that's not the most money I make on a property, but it's for what I owe on it and everything else, all said and done, it's the most profitable for the amount of units and blah blah blah. So pretty great little building, and you guys will have that too. Huntsville, Alabama. Okay, I will look at Huntsville. Okay. All right, guys. I got to run. It's been fun. And I'll do this again next week, okay? You guys have a great day. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions. Remember them. Next week we'll do this again, okay? Peace.